beautiful souls. Hannah here from Reality Awareness. If you don't know me, let me just pop this in because I know that. Okay, we should be right and good to go. I know it's a little bit windy, like I've just come out of the psychic development class in my Trust Intuition group, and there was not supposed to be a breath of wind. On the forecast, there was not a breath of wind this morning, but when I've got down here, I'm like, it's windy, and then there's possible rain, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit here anyway. And now it seems like it's quite windy, so I'm just gonna do the live stream anyway. So if it does get too windy, I trust that you will let me know, and it's kind of why I'm sitting a little bit weird, because the wind's coming this way, and if I try and hide the microphone, we should be good, because this is a really strong message that I've got to share about mediumship. And I was going to do a live stream on mediumship. I was going to do it last night, and then I hit a wall of tiredness. I'm like, I'll do it in the morning because my sleep is important to me. Hey, Lauren. All right, so let me just share this as always. And this is something that is really important for me to share. You can hear me loud and clear. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Let me just share this, and I will presently talk about this, because what I've got to talk about with mediumship, Kobe and his daughter, the helicopter, the conspiracy theory bullshit, and what's really going on with humanity waking up with these events and China and the virus and all this sort of shit. Like, oh my God, like let me get clear on this for a second. These are the messages coming through. Like I said, I was going to do a live stream just on mediumship. Hang on, let me share this. Just hang on a second. Let me be present with this, because this is a strong message coming through, right? You're going to have to mind, just please excuse if I really start sweating. It's really humid and really warm, and I've been sitting here in the sun already for an hour, so it's getting hot. I was gonna go for a swim, and I'm like, no, I need to share this message, and like busting to come out of me, because even busting to come out of me before, like I started talking about it in the psychic development class in my Trust Intuition group, because it was just so strong. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm talking about this. But then we went into the psychic development class, and I'm like, oh, this is why. Anyway, so the point I want to share is that in the start of that psychic development class, which I've just come out of, which I was sitting at the beach when that happened, right? I've been here for an hour doing that class. Now, when I first got on, it was really strong for me to talk about the helicopter crash, Kobe, his daughter, the other souls that were on that plane, mediumship, of course. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I need to share this message. And then I'm like, maybe I do need to share this publicly, okay? Now, as I was talking, it was like the first 10 minutes of the live stream on my psychic development class in the Trust Intuition group, and literally a guy walks down the beach with his partner and his dogs, and they walk down here, and he had the Kobe, like, basketball shirt on. And I'm like, if that's not a sign, come on, right? Now, I'm nervous to share about this, obviously, right? And literally with that guy walking down with the basketball shirt on, I'm in Australia. I personally had never heard of Kobe until all the celebrities that I follow started talking about it. I'm like, who's this guy? And obviously I saw the jersey, and then literally the guy walked down with it. So it's obviously a fan, right? Now that was a sign for me to yes, I do need to share this publicly. Now, the part about this is, for me, I was already getting the message Sunday to do a live stream on mediumship, because I kept getting all these messages as I do. And then I think it was Monday I started seeing that, and I'm like, who's Kobe? And, and then I started going into it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then yesterday I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit with it. And, I was reading a couple of articles and the plane crash and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, helicopter crash. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. But why am I watching it? And then I was like, oh, this is what I talk about on mediumship or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And then didn't really think too much of it, but it was quite strong. And then with the guy walking down at the beach here this morning, I'm like, yeah, I really need to talk about this, because for whatever reason, I found myself on somebody's Facebook and I'm like, why the fuck am I even reading this? Like, it was kind of weird to me, right? Because it really, like, before that happened, like the celebrities I follow, like, it's really rocked them, right? Of course it has, like, and a lot of fans, of course, right? And it's interesting when somebody passes away like this, what it does to the collective. Now, what came to mind when I was tuning into it on Monday or whenever I first heard about it, Steve Irwin came to mind. Now, you guys probably know Steve Irwin. He's, the Australia Zoo, the crocodile, reptile person, conservationist, who died suddenly with a stingray going through his heart. Now, that came to mind for me on Monday, and I was like, I wonder what's going to come of this. Now, reading from, a few of the celebrities' posts, he was like, Kobe was very, determined to, help change the world or whatever. Like, I'd never heard of him until then. And so anyway, I kind of kept doing my thing. And then last night, like I said, I ended up finding myself on someone's Facebook page, and they're talking about all these conspiracy theories and how he's gone into hideout with his daughter, and, actually he's not dead. And like, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what the fuck? And they talk about all this conspiracy theory stuff, and I'm like, I'd never even heard of the name thing, and I'm Googling. I'm like, what the fuck is this name? It was like conspiracy theory. And I'm like, oh, guys, like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Like, and some people might be going, oh, Hannah, like, you're missing the whole point here, all this sort of thing. He's been on our minds too. Yeah. And it was just kind of really interesting to me because, like, there's moving out of the matrix, and then there's moving out of the matrix, and then there's moving into the spiritual matrix and all the stuff that is still the matrix. Like, you want to talk about, you want to put a label on it, like, this is why I don't like labels, like, labels are good for explaining things, and then learn to let go of the labels and actually remove yourself from any label, okay? Any label. Don't get attached to any label. Like I said, labels are good for understanding and explaining and moving into a next level of consciousness. But then remove yourself from the label and detach from that system that you even feel resonance to, okay? Because it is a way to be trapped in any matrix, any web, whatever, right? Now, the main message that I want to share about this is that this is exactly tapping onto what I was starting to rant and rave about the other day around, like I was literally just, like I said, I just did my psychic development class. I went down to the water. I had an apple before I did this live stream. Hey, Tamsin. And literally, and you'll see me post this soon because I know there's more. I was down there, and it was like, that was really coming through, because I was like, whether that's true. Like, I personally don't feel like Kobe is still alive. Why? Because as I tune in as a medium and as a psychic and as a healer, I'm like, I don't feel like he's still here. Yeah? And it's interesting because I also feel like he knew it was coming, right? And it's interesting when we talk about souls that are getting ready to cross over and they don't know consciously, but soul level they do know, right? And it's like, then there's the souls that are dying and they know that they're dying and they are preparing consciously for that, right? There's a subconscious and an unconscious preparation for a soul to leave to go to the other side, okay? Now, this whole thing around, oh, it's a conspiracy theory and his death has been faked. I'm like, man, there is people in a big lot of fucking grief right now. It's the same with the fires. It's the same with like the China stuff and all the virus and all that sort of shit, right? And the message that I got, and I shared this in my Trust Intuition group on that psychic development class just now, is because obviously I've been tuning into it and I'm like talking to my guides and figuring out what's the messages here and all this is interesting. And when I first heard about it, I'm like, this is not the first. There's going to be more. Now, you might say, oh, well, that is the conspiracy theory then, Hannah, because there's going to be more. Well, they're going to make it happen. And I'm like, oh, guys, you're missing the point. As I shared in my live stream the other day, the purpose of predictive stuff is to be prepared. And this is exactly when, we spoke about in my psychic development class in Trust Intuition just now. I was like, why am I even talking about this on the start of psychic development class? And then I'm like, and then we start doing like, psychic training. And I'm like, oh, this is so interesting because this is what happens. We get thrown all this shit by the media and all these world events, and then we start doubting ourselves and doubting our intuition, and we're like, what's going on, right? And then we're not sure, and we're like, is that intuition or is that a conspiracy theory, or is that just made up, or is this my grief, or is this like somebody else's grief, or what's going on? Like, oh my God, how fucking confusing, right? This is why I do the psychic development classes, right? So this is really important to understand what's your energy, what's somebody else's energy. Detach from the labels, okay? On the China virus, okay, the China virus. All I'm going to say about it is this. Actually, I'm going to say two things. Now, I don't know much about stuff, right? Because I'm really detached from the labels. Now, when I say I'm really detached from the labels, as I said, I love labels because they help me understand, and they also help me teach understanding to others to help them to consciously understand intuition and what's going on in energy, okay? Labels are good for deciphering energy and understanding what exactly is going on, yeah? Now, when you have that conscious understanding and you're like, cool, got it, as I said, then detach from the label, okay? Because when you say, I'd love to hear your perspective on the China stuff, right? For me personally, I'm like, oh yeah, that's going on. I don't feel attached to it. Don't dive into the fear of it. Same with the Kobe stuff. I was like, what's this? You know, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, celebrities talking about it that I follow, that I love, these people. And, you know, and then like yesterday I found myself going down the rabbit hole a little bit with different articles, and I was like, and then I pulled myself out and I'm like, okay, got the information I needed, all good, right? Whereas I feel like when we're attached to it and it's this thing and it's like, oh my God, it's this. And I'm like, I got to stay away from it. And like, oh my God, it's bad. And the thing, there's so much I want to share about this, right? There's two other things I haven't shared about that specific topic yet. Is that when I took a break from that psychic development class and I went down to the beach, to the water, I'm at the beach, ate my apple, I had to come back and get my phone because this thing started flowing through me. It says, don't you know and believe there is a greater plan to it all? Don't you believe in the divine? That the divine already knew that all of this was going to happen? And that the divine has devised a plan greater than the scope of you trying to figure anything or any of the pieces of the puzzle out. The divine already has it organized. Don't you know that the dark is there to serve the light? Don't you know that that's the way that people are woken up into the light? Don't you know that they are serving the light, and your judgment of the dark, of the bad people, of the conspiracy theorists, and they're doing this, and don't you know that your energy and attachment to that is feeding them and also keeping them stuck? It said, don't you know that they are serving the light, and your judgment of the dark is keeping them trapped there, unable to shift back to the freedom of the light that you're so desperately fighting for? That was the message that streamed through when I had to walk back up and get I was like, cool, technology break, eat my apple, come back. I'm like, hang on, I need to write this down. Like, that kind of says it all, right? It's pretty strong. And when you really detach from all the drama and all the stuff and everything that they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing this, right? Now, specifically on that thing, okay, the thing I want to share about that is, obviously I've been tuning in and this is why I started talking about it for the first 10 minutes in the psychic development class, and I was like, why am I talking about this? Because when I got out of my car to walk here, it was so strong I had to talk about it. And the message that came through from my guide, the same guide that gave me the turkey prediction back in January 5th, is that, you know, when I was like tuning in and, you know, the thing that they showed me, okay, he showed me, I don't know how to describe it any other way than this. This is going to sound really judgmental, but this is the way in a labels that I can explain it, okay? And then know that I'm not judging, I'm explaining the energy in labels so then we can detach and see the bigger picture, okay? Please know that. So what they showed me is, say, for example, the China stuff and the virus, okay? That is waking up. Now you might be like, that's not waking people up, Hannah. Let me finish. That stuff, as people say, it's creating a lot of energy. It's waking people up in this group of collective consciousness, in this group of people, in this group of culture, in this group of, what is it called? Social, economic, dynamic or something. Like, social thing. What's the word? You know, there's rich people, there's middle class, and there's poor people, right? Whatever that's called to describe people, so you can let me explain. it's waking people up in a certain social demographic or something, right? You guys know what I'm trying to say, okay? China stuff's doing that. At the same time, number one, we just had the fires, remember? That was waking people up in a certain amount of thing. Now, people might say, oh, this is like bad, and they're doing it to build a train track and the 5G stuff, and like, who fucking knows? Maybe they are, right? But when you look at the bigger picture, it's shifting energy in this space on the land. Now it's in China. Now it's also, now don't just look at it as the land, it's the people connected to those environments, okay? It's waking people up, okay? Now everyone has a specific plan and purpose and their unique purpose. So if you are fully fired up and like talking about the conspiracy stuff is really alive for you, I'm really like, can you please keep doing that because it's alive for you? That is your purpose. That is right now what is really alive for you. You need to follow that wholeheartedly until it's not feeling like that anymore for you. Maybe it will always feel like that for you. And I'm really saying that because everybody is a particular piece of this like homeostasis balance of the divine picture of that message that I just read to you of everything that I've been talking about, right? And this is so important to understand the big picture, right? The people who are like deep in the grief and the fires, and the people who are saying it's all the government and they did it on purpose and everything is on imperfect divine order. Don't you know the divine has a plan greater, devise greater than your mind can even possibly try and figure out right now? Don't you believe in the divine that much? I know you guys do, you wouldn't be here. You know that, so let yourself detach from that and see the bigger picture of all of the pieces of the puzzle, right? The China stuff, right? The fires, the China stuff, it's waking up a certain demographic of people or something, right? Now the celebrity, whether that was purposeful from a conspiracy, they did it on purpose and killed him or not, right? We will never really know the truth. This is why I teach you to trust intuition. Even over what I'm saying, remember, when we look at that, that has now rippled out through the celebrities, yeah? And that demographic, you know, of course the fans as well, of course, right? There's those people and then there's those people. And it's really rippled out. What's it doing? It's waking people up in the grief. Okay, and look at these demographics and locations on the world in, for example, right? There's some people in Australia and there's people over there and there's people over there. And like, look at where all of this is unfolding. Now, I personally got that, the East, because I was like, well, this is interesting. What's next? And I got like New York and around that area sort of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, that's just where my mind goes when these things happen, right? So it's like looking at that. Now, that was what they showed me. They're like, it's waking people up in these different, like, they showed me it as levels, but it's like, you know, when you look at, say, rich people or poor people or whatever, like, it wasn't that, but it was almost that too. It's these different kind of, I guess it's demographics, right? Let me check these comments because I can't see with the sun shining so brightly on that screen. So, okay, the other thing I just want to say about the China stuff is kind of interesting to me, right? And the first thing, and the only thing that I want to say about this, because I probably will lose followers and whatever's, like, it's kind of what happens, right? Is that recently, I don't know if you guys heard about it or not, but I know I did because I'm very close to it. So recently there's been a measles outbreak in Auckland, New Zealand, obviously spread through New Zealand, obviously also spread through, like it went up to, what's those places called, like up to the islands and stuff, like I think through the Philippines or something, the measles outbreak, right? Now, if you guys follow me, know me, you know that my daughter goes to New Zealand all the time because her daughter lives in Auckland. And my daughter, I've chosen not to vaccinate her ever. And of course I'm like, measles, Auckland, it's all over the news because remember, what do they want to show you on the news? And then what's the truth of the situation besides the news? Even things like the measles outbreak. Now, my daughter went to New Zealand, Auckland. She spent a month there and she came back and she's still fine. Just saying. That's all I want to say about. And she went a month before Christmas at the peak of it. Yeah? So I'm just saying what the media shows you and all the articles and everything that they're showing you and making everyone tap into and everyone click on and everyone da-da-da-da, Then you tune into what is the truth of the situation. Now, I could have bought into the fear and the articles and even her dad saying it's all over the news. And I'm like, well, I know what the news is and I know that he watches it. Right? Just saying. Okay? You tune into what's going on and then you tune into your intuition about the truth of what's going on. Okay? So the other part I want to talk about with the mediumship and Kobe and everything, when we look at mediumship, okay, I'm just going to check these comments and then I'm going to talk about this next section because this is really important. All right, so let's have a look here. Hugely powerful, yes. Demographic, social, economic, and social and demographics, both of those things, right? You knew what I was talking about. Sometimes my words trip me up. But I'm like, what's the energy of that thing? I know the energy, but that word that matches that. Anyway, Tamsin says, I love that message and it brought me peace and just yes and breathe. Exactly. Not because I was stressed, but it has been in my awareness, but not had an attachment, but maybe just a curiosity. Yes. And how powerful was it? Like literally, I'm like, I need to write that down. You know, when something flows through you, you know that feeling. I'm like, I need to write this down. Yeah. So Kim says, apparently Kobe's birth chart showed that everything is as it was meant to be. He was incredibly spot on. His leaving now serves a higher purpose. Exactly. And his daughter, I was so curious about that. And, you know, a lot of people obviously talk about them and not the rest of the people on the plane. And I've been really consciously connecting with them as well. Looks beautiful, yes. So Rita says, his death has brought a lot of light to the world because his messages he preached have been brought to a lot of people's attention, whether they followed him or not, spreading light and love all over the world. Exactly, right? Now, there's a saying that goes, when your purpose is done in the world, you will leave. Look at Steve Irwin, right? And maybe that's why that came to mind, because it was out of the blue. Like he was filming, I don't know if it was the Great Barrier Reef or somewhere, where all these stingrays were in shallow snorkeling or something, and one of the stingray barbs went through his heart. Like, what are the fucking chances? Like, well, probably pretty high with someone like that who wrestles crocodiles for a living, like, for example, right? But when you look at what he's, you know, now created, and it's interesting because what did come to mind when Steve Irwin came to mind when I was tuning in on Monday, when I heard about Kobe, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I was like, what is his legacy? Right? Now, a couple of things here is that a lot of people, and I had to really work through this before as I started building online in the very early days, I was scared. I was like, but as soon as my purpose is done, I'm going to leave this world. And, you know, when we look at things like that, it's a reality. When our purpose is done on the world, we go. We have a choice to go, perhaps, right? We're in a certain stage of our purpose. Like, who really knows, right? And anyway, I'm just sharing that I was really scared of that, and I had to really work through that fear in me going full gung-ho on my purpose before, like, you know, because I'm like, shit, if I'm done, then I'm going to go. You know, look at Louise Hay, look at Wayne Dwyer. Like, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So, in that sense, like, I had to work through a lot of fear. Now, the purpose and reason I'm telling you this, right, is two things. I want to talk about the mediumship, being a healer, and what we really tap into the truth and the spirits leaving and what happens in mediumship and all that jazz. The other part that I want to share is that when you step up to start doing your purpose work, this is one of the fears that come up. Subconsciously, might not know why you're blocked. Yes, I always talk about the healing from the witch hunt's wound, but it's also this one. There is some sort of subconscious soul knowing that as soon as your purpose work is done, you're probably going to leave not long after that. Look at the Apple guy. What's he called? Oh my God, can't believe it. Steve Jobs, right? Like all those people, look what they brought to the world. Now, when you look at that, here is the key. Then you start tapping into what is the legacy and the footprint that you're leaving on this planet. What is your purpose? What is the reason that you have been born on this planet? Is it to sit there in fear and look at the world and the distress and everyone waking up and going, what's happening? And everybody's in fear and all the social media and all this stuff and everyone's like, it's fear. And I'm like, and what are you doing about it? Are you willing to break through the fear barrier and work through all the stuff that comes up through your subconscious and all the jazz and all the distractions and all the stories and all the blah, 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 blah? Are you willing to push through that and work through that to leave your legacy on the world? When you leave this world, what legacy are you leaving? Maybe not for the whole world, but for your family, for your generations to come in your bloodline. Like, what is that? If you haven't tapped into that, that's a very powerful motivator, right? When we look at these powerful big people leaving our planet, and we look at the legacy, like look at Steve Irwin, like he had his whole, like where that, the Australia Zoo, like it's called Steve Irwin Way, like that big road that leads, from the Sunshine Coast halfway to Brisbane is now named Steve Irwin Way. Like I'm sure there's foundations and everything named after him. Like what legacy are you leaving for the planet to have a big shift and a big wake up in consciousness? Now remember that when people have a spiritual awakening, the first thing that happens is their crown chakra awakens. They're like, oh my God. And then what happens? The heart chakra hits, and all the grief of the reality of everything they've been carrying and all the facing the hard truths of reality, they feel grief. Grief is a way into the heart. Grief is a way to wake up. Sometimes people have hard wake ups, yeah? And the planet needs hard wake ups. And the other part about my guide specifically showing me those, like I said, those demographic things, what I just shared on this live stream, right? Is that it's like all these things, like when you look at the placement of all these things happening around the world, take note of that. Take note, right? Take note of where they're happening, yeah? And look at what has happened, where's happened, when's happened, and we can start to kind of feel the energy of where the next thing's happening. Now, as an intuitive, as a healer, as a sensitive empath, these are the things that you should be doing, right? Fine-tuning your skills so that you can. So Tamsin said, yes, legacy stood out to me too with Kobe Bryant. Seen it and had significance, more so than the death. Exactly. I also seen a picture of him and his daughter, and in that picture the daughter said, what now? And he said, I don't know, but we're just doing it together. I got a sense of home and returning to be pure consciousness, just pure love and stillness. I felt beautiful in that moment. Exactly. Lady Diana, I was drawn to reading about her yesterday. Exactly. Her as well. I remember when I first started online, Lady Diana was really strong around me, actually. It's interesting you said that. Dana Murder, love that. Hey, Amanda. So, this thing about mediumship, okay, let me tap into this now. Now, if you've got any questions about mediumship, even if you're watching the replay, please comment below. Now, when we look at mediumship, it is like when we look at spiritual awakening and we look at fine-tuning our psychic senses, it is a byproduct that we start picking up souls on the other side. Now, you might feel the brush of the skin or somebody in your house and you're like, what the fuck, right? And sometimes we get scared and we shut that down, right? And number one, I want to just say, and I always say this all the time, just like you wouldn't let a stranger walk into your house because you've got doors and locks and boundaries and you'd be like, sorry mate, can't come in here, right? You can do this exact same, and you should be doing the same with the spirit world. This is my house. No. And this is where using your internal compass and expanding your internal compass. If you don't have my internal compass chakra clearing meditation, it is free. Please send me a message and I'll send you the link. If you haven't watched the training video in the internal compass chakra clearing meditation, please watch it, because all these tips and more tips are in here, okay? With your internal compass, it creates this octagon around you, okay? And you can imagine your house has its own internal compass and octagon as well. And so then you can create this force field shield around your house and even extend it out to your suburb. And I like to do this all the time when I go to bed at night and I lock my physical doors and check the windows or check whatever, right? It's like, okay, and at the same time, internal compass, woo, turned on. Like you guys can hear a hum from it, right? So when we look at mediumship and protecting our, our house, our boundaries, and I say it over and over and over and over again, our boundaries with the physical world and people and not letting strangers walk in your house and all that sort of jazz, it is exactly the same with the spirit world, okay? You don't have to serve every spirit that comes in, just like you don't have to serve every client that comes into your business, right? It's kind of like looking at where's your boundaries, who are you helping, who are you serving, yeah? Now, the other part about it is not to freak out, because when you start growing your gifts and start opening up to spirit and fine-tuning your senses and all this sort of thing, you naturally, we're going to sense angels. Of course, we're going to sense darkness and all the other things that are in the spirit world, right? And this is where trusting your intuition and being around people and tapping into the skills that enable you to decipher and what's what and what's what. It's just like Kobe and his daughter and the people in that crash. And like, there's all the conspiracy sayings of people that he's not dead. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how on point is your intuition or not? Like, did you actually even consider tuning in to actually the soul and actually tuning into how they're feeling? that's kind of the first thing you want to do, right? This is what the skills are, okay? All right, so Tamsin says, oh my God, love that Diana was following you. I was young when Diana died. So do I. I was like, I don't know if I was 5 or 8. Maybe I was in year 5. I remember being at the beach and I was crying. Like, it was like, I don't know why that hit me so hard, right? I was so young. Always said she knew the corruption and she knew things that she didn't want out, and she was killed for it. She was following her intuition and she was true to her heart. Yeah. So interesting what's going on, like with the royals right now too. I find that interesting. Anyway, so Jam says, what's your thoughts on someone leaving because they are way off path and need try again another lifetime? Well, anything's possible, right? And it's again tuning into what is right for you about what you're picking up about, whether it's Kobe or somebody else. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on someone leaving? I'm pretty sure you mean like dying and going over to the other side because they are way off path and need to try again another lifetime. And so something that I read, and this is where I always say trust intuition, but something that rings true for me, because I know that when I look back over my life, I've already had 3 of these, and they're called exit points. And basically an exit point, and this is by Sylvia Brown, and again, this is just something I read in a book, but that whole entire book, Life on the Other Side. If you want to learn about mediumship, highly recommend that book. But again, you need to tune into what's right for you, okay? Because everything on the planet, even what I'm saying, is coming through my intuition and my guides, and you need to tune into what's right for you. Every book, course, blah, 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 blah. I'll say it all the time, trust your intuition. However, what resonates with me is that Sylvia Brown says in that book that we have 5 exit points over our lifetime, okay? And they might be near-death experiences, they might be car crashes, they might be whatever, a near-death experience, whatever. And I know that I've had 3 of these. I've almost been in a car crash, but I literally said to the guy, I was like we were driving at 180 Ks. I remember it so clearly. I was like 15, I went to a party, it was out in the bush, and we were driving on this road in this old Tirana. And, the guy that was driving, and I was sitting like diagonal, so I was sitting in the back seat, so I could see the speedo. And like, I was stoned off my head and all sorts of jazz. And it was like 3 a.m. And I just remember like looking at the speedo, and he was like doing 180, and it's a big long road, and I knew those roads because I used to live up there. And like, it was going, and I was like, and then just something, like I just tapped him on the shoulder, and it's like 3 a.m. It's an old Tirana. It was loud. All the windows were down at 180 Ks. You can imagine it was noisy as fuck. And I just leaned over and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he, and I said, I was like up here, like it was coming to a T-junction, right? 180 Ks. Anyway, he starts slowing down, get to the T-junction, right? In the middle of the pine forest, out in the middle of nowhere. And here is like industrial area, yeah? And we get to here and we're waiting, because he's stopped and he's like seeing if there's anyone coming, and all of a sudden the Tirana just conks out. It was an old Tirana and it just broke down. It just stopped, right? And so we all get out, push it across the road, and we're all sitting there waiting at 3 a.m. for, I don't know, whoever was picking us up. And, we're all waiting around, and it's quiet, and there's no wind, and it's the middle of the bush, basically. And he turns to me and he said, if you didn't tell me that there was a T-junction coming up, I wouldn't have stopped. I didn't know. And I was just like, right. And that was like a fair while. It was like 20 years ago now, and I remember like it was yesterday. And after I started reading this book and learning about the exit points, I was like, that was an exit point. Now maybe the rest of the people would have survived and I died. Maybe all those people would have died. Like, who really knows? But I know that was an exit point. So I'm just saying that some souls know when to go. Some are like, some have a choice. Like, and I feel like it's all tied into the divine. And I feel like every time we make a choice to, when they say, is it all destiny and everything's already like laid out, so what's the point, right? And I'm like, we have a destiny versus choice. Like, we have a choice whether to choose our destiny and our purpose or not. Now, I personally feel that the people who are off path suffer more pain. Like, I kind of, maybe I don't really believe that, because that's a whole nother story in itself, right? But when we really look at, that in a sense of like that example that I just gave you, say if, on a soul level, I chose not to stay, right? And say that because I didn't choose that as well, I wouldn't have tapped him on the shoulder. Maybe we all would have died in that crash, right? And that would have changed the entire, like the ripple effect, that would have changed the dynamics of the life purpose of the world. Maybe I would have been born again into a different family. Maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I would have been a soul helping someone from the other. Like, who really knows, right? But when we look at that I made a soul choice to stay, and then I feel like I've walked through hell like not ever since, but I walked through a lot then, ended up on the other side of Australia, and look, here I am today, right? Now I know that I've had 2 other exit points as well, which is another story, but I guess I just want to share that when we make a soul choice to stay or to go, right, that there's a ripple effect that happens, and it's almost like, you know, what I see, because personally, like, for me personally, like, we have a choice whether the world is going to end badly or bend goodly. End goodly, that's not even a thing, right? Like, you know, the way humanity's going and the light or the dark, or is it going to win, or climate change, or all the stuff of conspiracy, like, who fucking knows, right? But I personally believe that with every little choice that we make to step up and help the world, I feel like what I see when I tune into all that and what they show me is like this like new like sprout, or this umbrella, or this new seed. It's like a seed within a seed within a seed. Like, and it, you know, if you want to look at the torus, for example, it's like the torus coming up and the torus going down, and it's a whole new thing. So someone chooses to stay, and they're like, cool, here's a ripple effect. Cool, here's a ripple effect. Here's a wake up of consciousness, a wake up. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I see, right? So again, that may not be true, and you need to tune into what's right for you, right? So that's my take about that, if that helps. But again, tune into what's right for you. Okay, so Amanda says, I was doing that regularly around my house and stopped for a couple of weeks, and a couple of people tried to break in while my daughter's home alone. Okay, now this is awesome too. So when we are not at home, I can feel myself getting really burnt here. 2 hours in the sun. It's nice. So when, you know, like, you know, if I'm not home and I'm like, oh, my house, and I start feeling about my house, I'm like, internal compass on, like, when I turn my internal compass on, it's like this hum, or that vibrational hum. It's not a shield blocking out everything, but it also makes your house go invisible, and it's like I just see it and I'm like, cool, switched on. So interesting, hey? I love that, Amanda. Thanks for sharing that. Christine says, do you know what houses mean in a dream? I dreamt about a house, but someone else owned it. Interesting. Okay. So houses mean, sorry, I'm just looking here. So I might have had one too. Oh yeah. So talking about houses. So houses, like cars in dreams, are a representation of yourself. So for example, if somebody was driving, you know, in a dream, you're driving a car, somebody else is driving your car or driving our car, and you're in a passenger seat or the back seat, then that's like they're driving your life, if that makes sense. So I feel like a house, it's like whose life are you trying to live that's not your own? So I'd be curious, like whose house was it, and what do they influence your life, and how do you need to reassess your life in whatever way, shape or form because of that type thing. That's the sense that I'm getting about that, yeah? Especially if somebody else owned it, yeah? Different houses, so say if it was your house and it's an old house, or it's a broken down house, or there's holes in the house, or you're in a house and it's not even yours but there's all holes in the roof, or maybe it's a beautiful house, or like that has representation too about where you're at, maybe consciously, energetically in your aura. Is there holes in your aura, holes in the house, that sort of thing, yeah? And that can be a physical representation too. Tamsin says, me too, the whole Harry and Meghan thing. Yes, kind of interesting, right? I don't get no bad vibes from Meghan, but I've had a lot of awareness around that too. Interesting. But then I always come back to what you said before that's resonated. If big things are in the media, what are they feeding you to hide? Exactly. It's always that, keep an eye on that, right? Bigger picture is seeing what's really going on, yeah? Seeing and hearing beyond the word, seeing and hearing beyond what you're already seeing and hearing, yeah? Somebody's saying something, what are they saying behind those words? If you're seeing a picture, what's going on behind the picture, yeah? It's your third eye and your ear chakras. If you're feeling a feeling, what's going on behind the feeling? You want to go deep with this? We can keep going down the rabbit hole with that if you like. I love this stuff, can you tell? So grateful for the wisdom I have now. Yes. Okay, so Christine says, I might have had one too. I nearly had a car accident with my girlfriend, but for some reason I turned the corner in the dark, not even fully seeing that. If I wouldn't have done, I would have gone off the road. Exactly right. So Kim says, I was 30 and 20 weeks pregnant. I was in the UK. I lined up for 8 hours to sign the condolence book. I left an A4 page spray on the royal family. Made the royals lower the flag in respect for Diana. Yeah, wow. Provided water to us. Oh, wow, that's amazing, isn't it? That's incredible. I've been thrown back a few times. My job is not over yet. Exactly. Oh, so I just want to say too, so when somebody has a near-death experience, more specifically, when somebody has a suicide attempt, probably when a near-death as well, but more so a suicide attempt, and they didn't survive, when they didn't successfully succeed in the suicide attempt, for about 3, 6, 9 months afterwards, their life is really hard. Their life is really bad. It's really a struggle street. Lots of anger, lots of frustration, shame because of what they did and everyone's judgment, plus everything else that's going on. And I just want to point that out. So if you know somebody who has attempted suicide and is still here, of course there's a high risk they might try and do it again. But if you can really understand that concept that their life is hard for like the next 9 months, and really, I guess encourage support, or where are you feeling called to help them, of course, but like really just having that understanding and awareness that for the next 9 months their life is really hard. It's like they're born again, but dealing with all that, do you know what I mean? It's a big reality facer, that one. So just felt called to share that. So Amanda says, I know I've had 2 exit points in the last year, but I chose to stay. Yes, maybe because I haven't stepped up. I'm kind of living in torture. Yes, right. So this is the thing. The more we step up, so this is not true either. The more we step up, the easier life gets. And I'm like, yeah, it does eventually, right? And we train ourselves to do it, right? And I just want to point out, when we're fully focused on our purpose, that takes precedent over any other dramas going on in our life, right? We could get pulled into that, but we choose to focus on this. And the more we focus on this, the stronger that gets, and that becomes our reality, and then that helps that situation. Yeah? Yes. So Christine says, yes, my mum drove my car in my dream when she visited. How interesting. It was Michelle's house. It was beautiful. The window was broken. The rest looked amazing. Cloudy, dark sky, but a beautiful sunset. Okay, so windows represent the soul. Sorry, I'm sweating, guys. It's really hot. And 2 hours in the sun. So the window was broken. So the windows are the doorway to the soul. Yeah? So when we look at, like they say, you can look in somebody's soul through their eyes. Yeah, it's like in a house, the windows are it's what you can see into the soul. So on a physical level, how clean are your windows? Right? Just saying. Awesome. All right. So I feel like there's so much I could talk about mediumship, which is like going down the rabbit holes. There's so many things. I know that I've spoken about mediumship. If you go on my website at realityawareness.com, and when you go to the psychic development page, it's the self-help page. When you scroll down to the third eye, there is a full, if you enter the third eye, there's all this stuff on mediumship. Every live stream that I've talked about mediumship, touched on things, I always put it on that page. So if you want to learn more about mediumship, there's heaps of live streams about trusting intuition, about messages, about symbols, about all sorts of jazz, because there is so much to learn about mediumship. Because honestly, like I say, if we open up our psychic senses, we naturally open up to mediumship. We naturally open up past, present, future, all the realms, right? And so there's so much to talk about it. This is why I teach this in Trust Your Intuition. Plus also there is specific mediumship. There's a specific third eye chakra course alone, which is deep into relationships and healing, plus mediumship. There's so much. So I could keep talking about it until the cows come home, but that's why I've already done 50,000 videos and got 1 million courses on it. Well, not that quite, but it feels like that, right? So I feel like that's what I needed to say today, though, on this live stream. So if you guys have got any questions and you are watching the live stream, of course, you can still comment on here. Wild brumbies. So horses are very connected to the heart chakra. Yeah, very connected to the heart chakra, and also our astral body, where our feelings are highly clairsentient, deeply tapping in and healing the heart. So when you dreamt of wild brumbies, it's like your heart wants to be free, or is it free? Yeah. If you guys are stressing about humanity and all this stuff and you're not sure where to start, honestly, start with my conversation with the archangels. If you guys haven't listened to it, let me pop the link in the comments now, actually. You can also find this on my page. I probably should put it on the front page of my website. I will do that today, so you can easily find it. This is a free audio that I downloaded, that I intuitively downloaded. The 16 archangels were tapping me on the shoulder and they wanted me to channel these specific messages. It's quite long. It's about an hour and a half long, but when you're channeling 16 archangel messages, it's quite long. So you can listen to it multitasking, or you can sit there and allow yourself to receive the messages and the healings as each of the archangels come through in the in this conversation with the archangels. Yeah, it's free. You can download it, listen to it. Because when you don't know where to start, or you don't know who to trust, or you don't know anything, the first thing you want to do is really start building your intuition. You want to start building that spiritual connection, and you also want to feel safe in that connection. Now, if archangels don't resonate with you, well, I encourage you to use whatever deity resonates with you. Just make sure it's of 100% light. That's all I say about that. Okay, so whatever deity is saying of 100% light, please can you help me, right? Always add of 100% light on. That way you know that you're always receiving the highest vibrational frequency and no lookalikes, okay? No vibrator likes or something. So, conversation with the archangels. Yeah, you're so welcome, Tamsin. It is a beautiful day here in Australia. So, conversation with the archangels. Like I said, if you've got any questions or anything, I've got so many free resources, so many videos, so many training videos, so many free stuff. So if you get stuck, you can even have a look on my psychic development page. So like I said, realityawareness.com, go to the psychic, scroll down, and psychic development is there. And on there is a list of all these things that you can do, or you can keep scrolling down and you can go into each chakra, the crown chakra, or the third eye, or the ears, or the throat, or whatever. Like it's all there, right? And you can search by issue and problem that's going on, or you can go into the third eye, or you can go into the ears, or whatever, right? And there's all these resources there that can help you shift and awaken your consciousness, start building your psychic development, and start feeling safe in the world, because we need more of you to start trusting your intuition and feeling safe so that we can hold this bigger picture, higher vibration for humanity to do whatever it's doing, right? So you did the Archangel attunement yesterday. It was really beautiful. Yes. And you actually went through it again straight away. Yeah. It's so powerful, right? So yay. The Archangels are so, so special and deeply, deeply supportive. And it is a way to start strengthening your intuition, start trusting your intuition. So I highly encourage working with the Archangels or any other deity. I have literally worked with the Archangels since 2005. They were my first wake up in spirituality, and they've been by my side ever since. So I have a very strong connection and relationship with all of them. So you can check out that conversation with the Archangels. And if you think this live stream could help somebody, please share it. Please tag them in the comments, or you can share it in a private message with them. Or if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe, and I shall see you guys soon. Love you.